right, good morning, everyone. Wanted to welcome you guys to NCDOT presentation for the NCDOT Open Roads Rollout Week. OpenX refers to the different Bentley Connect Edition brands. NCDOT is proud to partner with Department of Transportation to bring these unit updates. This morning's presentation is going to be on work zone traffic control. Justin Beaver is going to be making the presentation, but a few short housekeeping details. This is a webinar presentation, so all attendees will be muted. At any time during the webinar, you guys can submit questions through the chat box, where I'll pose those questions to Justin at the end, or towards the end, we'll allow you to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask those questions if you want to at that time. So let's just hold the questions towards the end, or throw those in the chat box. We will be recording the webinar. We'll have it on our website shortly. NCLUG is offering PDH credits for those who have registered on the website for this event. After the NCLUG session, we'll send out PDH receipts to those who attended the live meeting, but no credit will be given to anyone that views it on the website. If you have any problems, the past couple of days, we found that if your screen is freezing or you can't hear the presenter, that just exit the meeting and come back in, and that normally resolves the issue. Definitely reach out to us through the chat or something if you still can't get that, so we can help you. With all that, I appreciate Justin joining us this morning, and I will turn it over to him.
Thank you. As mentioned, my name is Justin Beaver. I work for Work Zone Traffic Control for NCDOT, and I've kind of taken over the baton, I guess, from Roger Garrett that I think most of you are probably familiar with. He handled a lot of the CAD-related things in TMU, so I've kind of taken over that role for him in terms of rolling out ORD and managing our workspaces. So I'm going to be fairly brief this morning, and hopefully we can evolve into some discussion points, and we'll go into a little bit more of that later on, and hopefully at the end I can show you a little bit of a demonstration and kind of show you what the ribbon looks like with ORD in terms of work zone. So with that said, a quick outline of what I'm going to try to cover today. Kind of look at our current TMP design workflow, how we iterate on projects and the nature of the things we do. And then look at what 2D versus 3D plans may look like, what kind of tools we may get with ORD as we progress more into 3D models and 3D line styles and all that good stuff. And then we're going to look at some current changes from SS4 to ORD, mainly how we've taken some of the icons and processes and put them into a ribbon to try to keep everything centralized. And then finally talk about future plans with ORD, what could happen in the future. And this is more distant future as we get more comfortable with the software, as the software gets better at handling 3D models, as the time investment decreases in terms of how much effort you have to put in to get a good working model out of it. And finally, I'm going to just touch on some of the roadway training modules that was discussed in the roadway session, in case anyone missed it, and how they may be useful for traffic control, because we go hand in hand in terms of drafting and using each other's line styles to develop plans. So first off, I kind of want to touch on our iterative design philosophy of traffic control. Roadway develops plan sheets and their final proposed designs, and you have one set of plan sheet for each linear foot of roadway that you're designing. Traffic control is a little bit different. It's not nearly as detailed in terms of developing all the cross sections, all the drainage in that sense, but our intent is obviously to try to tell contractors what they need to do to maintain traffic and where they can work during certain phases. Some of these projects can take 4, 5, 6 phases if you get extremely on the complex side. So you can multiply that by the roadway sheet and get a rough idea of how many sheets we might have in a plan development. While roadway is developing one model for a final proposed terrain to give to a contractor for machine control, if you do that for work zone traffic control, you're looking at maybe 3, 4, 5 times the effort. And you got to start asking yourself, is it beneficial? How much do we get out of it for the effort involved? And that's kind of where we're going into with this rollout. We're looking staying more on the 2D side for now, and as we get better with the 3D, start expanding our horizons in terms of developing 3D line styles and 3D terrains. So as I said, TMP plans consist of multiple phases, and it's really unrealistic to expect designers to develop models for each individual phase. Again, I want to reiterate, TMP plans are there to tell the contractor how to maintain traffic, not how to build the project. We give them areas to work in, but we don't specify their sequencing directly. And finally, there you see talking about weighing our model accuracy versus time efficiency. I've dabbled a little bit into roadway design back a few years ago, back when they started releasing 3D terrains, and you can spend an awful lot of time making that model absolutely perfect. And then you got to start asking yourself, what's the benefit if your deliverables are still cross-section sheets? So as I said before, as we develop more models and get better with the software, and the software is able to handle our 2Ds to 3D conversions better, this might change. So to talk quickly about what 2D versus 3D plans may look like, ORD is kind of like this whole push for 3D. You make it in 2D, converts it automatically to 3D. It's not quite apples to apples. I'm sure there's a lot of frustrations. A lot of people have experienced. I know roadways experienced a lot of issues with simply cutting cross sections or shooting cross sections recently here. So this slide's just to tell people to kind of like calm any fears they may have about learning something brand new and developing these complex 3D models for the traffic control plans. We're not quite there yet. For the most part, for work zone traffic control and TMP plan deliverables, we're not expecting much different than what you currently deliver. It's just a different interface with a ribbon. We're still doing 2D plan development. There's still 2D plan deliverables. Now, once you get, like I said, more comfortable with the software, there's other things you can do, especially on more complex projects, to either help with visualization or help with seeing how a culvert's constructed, things of that nature. So just to show you what these 3D conversions from 2D line styles may look like, this is just a quick snippet I took off one of the Bentley training videos. And you can see here, most of the design happens in the top left there with the terrain model. And they're just drawing a drum line style across a 2D terrain there. And it's automatically attaching to the terrain, the proposed terrain, and showing the spacing of the cones here on the right and even the barrier on the left. So like I said, it could help with visualization, especially if you're in design build pursuits that you need to push something like that, or even contractors to understand exactly how to control traffic in very stage constructed areas. So that's something we may progress forward. It doesn't really exist now, but it can be developed future because, like I said, we're not really pushing 3D as a deliverable, but it's something you can easily add in because it's just a simple associating a line with a 3D model. Additionally, one thing that ORD may allow us to do is to create unique cross sections and not just the ones that roadway gives us. Since we do have access to the entire terrain model, we can easily cut a cross section across their terrain model and see how it looks in terms of our traffic control. Now, this isn't always going to be easy because most of the time our cross sections are interim cross sections, they're phase cross sections. But there are things you can do where you can show how the proposed lines up with the existing across a certain line. So there's some benefit there in terms of having a full terrain and not just relying on cross sections that roadway gives us and interpolate in between. And finally, drainage. I talked about doing some, if there's a complicated stage culvert construction, when you have a lot of elevation changes and you need to shift traffic left and right. This is another just quick image I took off one of their training videos, and you can see how drainage can model their 3D structures, put them in the ground, and you could imagine if you were to take the proposed structure and the existing structure to really show a contractor how they need to build something. Again, this isn't something we expect as a deliverable, especially with the ORD rollout. Everything can still be done in 2D, but you do have the capabilities now, since the other disciplines are providing 3D features, to pull those in and actually, get your hands dirty in terms of developing good TMP plans to show complicated situations like stage construction can be. So with that said, just a really quick want to touch on ProjectWise as a workspace. I think the push now is to put all our workspaces in ProjectWise, and that's going to be the place where you download the updated workspace. This is kind of an aside, just to I wanted to mention it in this thing. I think we currently use the update workspace tool, and that may still exist. I'm not entirely sure. Jeff can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do remember us talking about putting all our workspaces in ProjectWise, so it'll be updated from that interface. As with all our projects in the future, are going to be placed in ProjectWise. So going quickly into some, what you can see moving forward for ORD, this month or next month or whenever you get your hands on a brand new project. This is a screen cap I've taken from what we use currently with SS4 in our workzone traffic control workspace. And most of you who deal with TMP plans are probably familiar with it. It's just a drop-down list with specific cells or line styles that you can select from a drop-down list in the top. These are getting moved to a ribbon. And you can see here's the workspace selected inside ORD, and you can see the ribbons populated at the top right. And maintaining that workspace inside workzone traffic control, we can put anything in this ribbon. It doesn't even have to be workzone related. It can be roadway related. If it makes it easier to click a button that you use all the time in developing TMPs, that's something we can put in the ribbon. And that's something that we would look for feedback, especially from the private industry who develops a lot of our TMP plans. Is there something that could be useful in this ribbon? Because, we're taking a stab at it for the most part, but you guys are doing more plan design than we are in-house. So keep in mind that this is fluid and it's kind of a working process. We can always update this and push out a new update if we need to. I'll show that a little bit later too, exactly how that looks. So just to zoom in what the ribbon holds currently, I actually think the TMP guidelines link is broken currently because we moved some folder structures around. But it's got your main tools that you saw before. You can see in the bottom there that you have a cells drop-down list and an arrows drop-down list. Those are directly linked to element templates now. So the same as before, you would click that and draw a drum line style, and it would drop your drums, and then you would have to specify the gap. There's the modify line styles button down there that will let you specify the gap, and just a few other quality of life things that we've added there. And like I said, we've got more room, obviously, and if there's things that we don't use, we would take out, and things that we feel like that should be added, we can always add those in. Most of these, I think, are based off MDL inputs. So it's as simple as adding a button and typing the MDL input for the ribbon and pushing it to live. So going further, to talk about some of our future plans, maybe near term, 6 months horizon kind of looking. We've talked with Bentley about some things we can do to help improve your workflow and get you some better tools to make your plan design easier. And one of those things is use the plan quantities for element templates, such as drums. And we currently have one drum line style, and you can specify a gap on that drum line style. We're talking about making maybe multiple ones so that when you do run a plan quantities, you can specify the gap in those plan quantities. So you might have drum style, line style 1, 2, and 3, each with a different spacing on the miles per hour. So that way you don't have to go calculate all the linear feet and do the math yourself. You can just type in a gap spacing for each line style, and it'll spit out a number that you can use in your quantities. This is in addition to potentially using pivot tables for sign, specifically cells. We can attach cells to pivot tables inside ORD that when you run your plan quantities, it knows that if you drop this W91 cell, they know it's 16 square feet. And so it can spit out a quantity number that says, temporary signs, or, the square footage of your temporary signs is 16 square feet, and add all those cells up. Well, should be double checked for accuracy. It'll give you a good starting point and a back check in terms of finding out which if your quantities are in the right ballpark. So that's something more we potentially could do going forward in the next 6 months or so. And finally, most people in the private industry who's used TMPs or used to submitting TMPs, they should have access to our external estimate database that we put our quantities into. And this is something I just thought of. There's probably a good way for us to develop a system to be able to import those plan quantities or the quantities generated from MicroStation into this estimate worksheet so that you have a good starting point. You don't have to go find each one by hand and double the work. It doesn't seem like it'd be too difficult, especially with reports you can generate from ORD, to be able to take that and format it into a system to import into into Access. So that's another kind of horizon goal that we've set to potentially provide. So finally, real quick, going into the roadway training modules. And like I said, if you were in the roadway section, you probably heard this before, but I kind of went through each module and figured out, excuse me, how it could be best paired up with the works on traffic control. So if you're if you are looking for training, look to the roadway training in terms of plan design because it's very, very similar to what you're doing now. The way they develop their 2D plans in roadway and translate to 3D, you're going to use a lot of the same features. So just real quick, module one file management, it's specifically workspaces, how to set those up and make sure that you're dealing with workspaces. It's not like SS4 anymore where it's either hard coded or you set it up with the user control. You've got to actually make sure the workspace is set before you open a file a lot of times, especially if it's an existing SS4 file. And second, your existing terrain module. This goes into how to manipulate and import on a basic level, I guess, survey files and work with those, especially if you're developing TMP plans that cut a proposed surface and a existing surface. And then some of these are self-explanatory. Horizontal alignments, how to develop alignment shifts if you're doing that. If you're wearing both hats as roadway and TP designer, vertical profiles as well, that they have to be stored. They have to be associated with their horizontal alignment to be stored. And then 5, 8, 9 are your corridor modeling utilities. While not specifically useful currently with our deliverable requirements for TMP plans, moving forward, it's something good to learn in terms of being able to maximize ORD for what it can do. And finally, plan geometry, which talks about 3D line styles. This is going to be module 6. With feature definitions, that's the big thing. Feature definitions and element templates. And then module 10, sheeting, which hopefully is familiar to you all with our, I don't think it's going to change too much the way we sheet. Maybe project-wise is going to get a bigger change on that one. So I'm going to pivot gears real quick and kind of just go through a quick exercise on ORD to show you some if you want to jump into it right away, once you get your hands on it and bring in old files from SS4, some quick troubleshooting problems and some other things with the ribbon. So let me stop sharing the screen real quick and let me pull up my my window. All right, so you should see MicroStation here. This is in ORD, but what I've done here is I've taken an existing SS4 file that we've developed in-house. This is a base map that we made. Let me turn line weights off real quick. A little bit easier to see. And you can see here, I've opened this in ORD straight from SS4 just to see what it looks like. And you see there's some problems here. My drums are just straight orange lines. My signs have weird text to them. They actually bleed out in some areas. You can see here they actually bleeds out here. If you ever see this and you're wondering what's the problem, it's because you're not in a workspace. And that's the #1 issue that I've seen when opening existing files in ORD. And there's a quick way to check that. You can just go to File, Close. Some of you may already know this, and some it might be brand new. But if you just close the file real quick, it'll actually tell you in the top here, no workspace. So that's a quick check to make sure you're in the right workspace so you can see our line styles and have access to our ribbon. So I've actually opened up another file where I've same file, but I've actually selected the right workspace. Now this can take some time. It takes, I think, my computer 2 to 3 minutes to fully convert SS4 and load all the line styles to give it a workspace. But you can see this is the exact same file. All the drums are showing, all the text is updated, and it looks as you would expect it to look. So with that said, if you look in the top left here, one thing you can check too is this drop-down list. When you're in our workspace, a lot of times it's defaults to the first one here, and you won't see the ribbon. Just make sure you drop down and click on Works on Traffic Control, and then the ribbon should populate. And this is the same screenshot you saw earlier. There's some just quick shortcuts, and you can see here's our cell libraries just like before. They still have the cell selectors as you've seen before too. And our line work is the same as well. So if you want to make drums, you can see it drops them every feet, and you just have to come in here and modify the line style with a gap spacing. So this should work as you still working. And there you have 50-foot drums. Very basic. It's just everything is supposed to be put on this ribbon. And as you can see, we have plenty of space here to add more buttons, and we can take some of these buttons away that we might not use. So I am all ears to private consultants if you guys have some improvements you want to add to this ribbon. And finally, one thing I want to add that's not directly related to ORD, but since I was in microstation, I wanted to mention it. Some future things you can expect. I know this is a big sticking point for a lot of you. These bike ped cells that we've added. That's not accurate. I think I'm in this still in the wrong line style. Just to show you, so this is the drum line style. That's why I did that, because I'm still in the drum element template. So let me go back to TCP line work. And you can see here, one thing we are going to do here in the near future is we're going to update this cell library for the pedestrian facilities and not make this look like a type 3 barricade. I know that's a big issue we see a lot on most of our projects is contractors using type 3 barricades when those are not ADA compliant. So one thing we'll probably do is we'll probably remove this center rail, probably squish it a little bit to make it look more like 6 feet instead of 8. So you can look forward to that too. I wanted to mention that while I was here, just so the private industry knows something that's coming down the pipeline to make your job easier in designing sidewalk improvements. So that's all I wanted to show as far as this goes. Like I said, once you get in this, make sure you're in our workspace, make sure you have a ribbon, and you can just go through the work zone traffic control buttons here and see if they work as intended. But you can see all this looks very similar to what you're used to. And that's one thing about the ORD rollout for traffic control. It's you're doing the same thing you're used to. There's no reason to worry about it. 3D is still a ways away for traffic control because we're so iterative. The benefit's just not there yet. So like I said, once roadway gets better with it, once drainage gets better with it, and once we get better with it, then maybe we can look at something different. But contractor deliverables are still 2D plans. We're not there yet to give them 3D deliverables, and God forbid us trying to seal a 3D deliverable. I'm sure nobody wants to mess with that yet. So let me go back to the presentation real quick, and we can I apologize. I think I actually hit the wrong button there. Okay, so it should be back up now. So this is just the final slides real quick. Like I said before, it's a coordination, internal and external partners with NCDOT and the private industry. So we're looking for that feedback, and any questions you guys have, would be happy to take. And that's all I've got for today. Like I said, it's very similar to what we're all used to. Not a whole lot's different on the rollout, but as things develop and we evolve, it'll, I'm sure, change, and that probably goes for all the disciplines across the board.
All right. Before we start fielding the questions, Jeff, did you have anything you wanted to add in closing?
No, but a fantastic presentation, Justin. Certainly appreciate all the work that you and the team are doing towards this. And in terms of the managed workspace and everything we're doing with ProjectWise and the Update Connect workspace, I think we have Randy on and others. I know we're working towards moving off of or not utilizing the Update Connect workspace in the future as we go to ProjectWise, but is that correct, Randy?
Yeah, we're planning. I mean, it may still be available in the future, but we're pretty much going to try to handle everything through ProjectWise, just
right,
for more consistency and ease of use by everybody involved, actually.
Yep. No, thank you for that, Randy. But no, Justin, fantastic presentation, and Ian, certainly welcome to Justin's point. Any input, questions, comments from the industry, and as we try to continue to figure this out, but certainly at this point, the two-dimensional is the general direction, and obviously trying to understand the implications of 3D. But to your point, Justin, the iterative processes, the cost-benefit analysis is not really there at this point. That's one way to say it.
All right. Well, I just added the email address. I know you had it up earlier, but if anyone wants to reach out to NCDOT for comments, suggestions, for ORD implementation, definitely send that in. We just asked if you have any questions like pertaining to this one, that you just put the traffic control in your subject line so we know what session you're asking questions about. With that, I think I had one question. If anybody else has questions, feel free to type those in or unmute yourself. I've got one that's are TMP line styles physical, or do they annotatively scale?
That is a good question. I don't know the full answer to that. I want to lean towards annotatively scale. I know Roger Garrett, right before he retired, he put a lot of work into I see your quote, Oak, put a lot of work into rescaling a lot of our line styles. So I haven't dealt with that specifically, but that is something we need to try out before here soon.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff, for the eye.
Yep.
But yeah, great. Yeah, Jim, if you want to send in that question to get any further clarification, feel free to. I'm sure they can track that down for you to get a full, if anything. All right, is there any other questions from the group? Feel free to unmute yourself if you want to ask a question or throw that in the chat box. We've been going back and forth from having too many questions outside to where we can't handle them all in the hour and to very few. So maybe this morning everybody's needing their coffee.
And Ian, just to add on that too, as you come up with questions or thoughts, like I said, we are meeting again tomorrow at noon for a wrap up. Going to have a pretty good panel on there, but feel free to, again, reach out to us. There's a number of ways, obviously, to contact us, but we'll also be looking for questions tomorrow at noon as well. But really appreciate everyone's help. This is a collaborative piece for the entire state. This is a big move for the department that will be ongoing for the several years here, but like I said, we're looking to get out of the gate as best as possible, and this is really a good time to work with industry around figuring out the best workflows and the best processes. If we can change some of our practices now to make things more efficient, it's a good time. We've kind of got everything thrown up in the air as we're redefining things, so we welcome that input. So thank you.
All right. Well, like I said, feel free to send those questions in. Stay tuned for the next NCDOT presentation. Be on work zone signing at 12 o'clock. Like Jeff said, be sure to join tomorrow for QA wrap up session for kind of wrap up this week. If you have any suggestions for future events or topics, feel free to send in those suggestions to events@ncdog.com. And be sure to tell others if you have folks in your office that aren't NCDOT members, it's free, and you definitely get all these invites and event announcements so that you can stay tracked and also earn PHs. Thank you everybody for jumping in this morning to this webinar, and thank you, Justin, for presenting, and I'll let everybody go and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you.